Our next guest is Ash Franklin, who is a maths graduate, maths enthusiast. In fact, I'll invite Ash, if he's ready, to make himself known, and we can say, hey.
Hello.
Hi, Ash. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing all good. So, I've been watching the stream for the past few hours now. They're preparing to be here. Now, the awkward thing here is I've got two cameras set up, and I've got to try and remember that this is my face on. The one down here is to look at that when I'm talking to people.
We're all learning how to operate complicated technical setups during the last 7 months or however long it's been. I'm suddenly becoming far more adept at this kind of thing. So you say you've been watching. How much have you been watching so far?
So I watched a fair amount yesterday evening because I basically had yesterday evening free. So I watched. I think I missed the first section for the first half hour, but then watched a couple hours after that. So I forget who the guests were now, but it was all good fun.
Well, I'm going to be awful to you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you remember any interesting tricks from earlier on in the marathon?
Any interesting tricks from earlier on? I
mean, that was awful of me to try out.
Yes, I'm sort of mainly because I've been sort of in this headspace of trying to psych myself up. Of okay, you're going to be on in front of an audience. Like, actually, but I do live stream.
There's no audience. It's you and me. It's just you and me. We're having a chat.
Yes.
We're chilling out. We're talking about some maths because we love it.
Yes. The main thing that stood out was I checked in on Sydney Weaver's section early on because she was also doing similar to what I've been doing, but with a different vibe. She was doing Rubik's Cube stuff. Spoilers, I'm doing stuff with the Rubik's Cube.
Have you noticed my decoration?
Yes, I spotted that during your last section. It's lovely.
That's for you, that is.
Excellent.
Look at that.
That's awesome. Yes, just quick shout out to Kit in chat. Because I do live streaming, I do have like a two monitor setup, and I have the chat up next to me as well. So just hello, Kit.
So you are a maths graduate. So you've graduated now, have you?
Yeah, well, I graduated back in 2016. An interesting time to graduate, I find. But yes, so I've been. It's like, unfortunately, it's like the last proper maths I've done. Like, I've had a few jobs since then, but like none of them have been strictly maths. Like, they've been usually IT related. But yes,
I'm hoping that you're keeping the maths alive, though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, as far as outside, outside of work, I say that. Like, I've had a part-time job tutoring maths as well. Actually, the whole time. Like, so.
How are you finding that? How are you finding tutoring?
I found tutoring has always been nicer with smaller groups because. Like if you're with either with a one-to-one with a child or young person or 2 or 3, like it's much easier because you can sort of have a more of a conversation about it, which lets you instead of just putting saying maths forward, just hoping they absorb the people in the room absorb it. It's nice to sort of be able to have them ask you questions more directly and be able to understand what they're struggling to understand in some cases, because maths being the thing that is, everyone knows it can be complicated, and some people just miss small details, which in a large classroom can be missed.
Is that GCSE you're teaching? Is it
I've done from primary school to I have tutored people like in their first year of A level, helping them bridge that gap between GCSE to A level, because I think A level is where it really starts to get very interesting, in my opinion. Like, that's when I went from being good at maths in school to loving it as a subject.
Interesting. I mean, may I ask you a little bit about that then? So were you someone who was into maths from a young age?
I mean, in my memory, it feels like I was good and enjoyed maths back in primary school, because I definitely know that it was I had an amazing A-level maths teacher who definitely, I think they did an introductory session. We went in for a day in like our last year of GCSE to sort of see the college or something, I recall, and he did a talk, and he introduced the concept of, I asked the question, what do you think 0.9 recurring is, and then listed, I think it was 4 options, like, do you think it's equal to 1, less than 1, the biggest number, less than 1, stuff like that, and then went on to explain that it's actually 1 and why that's true. And suddenly you realize that, okay, so math isn't as straightforward, but still very interesting as you've been led to believe so far. It's not just a case of put the numbers in, some other numbers come out, there's your answer.
Yes, which is very robotic, isn't it? It's like,
yes.
And the more surprising parts of maths. Yes, that's what kind of inspires you, and I agree. Yes.
Yes.
Now we've probably got something that probably kind of is the curious, kind of quirky bit of maths as well, isn't it? To show next. So, what have you brought in to show everyone?
So let's start my other camera so we can see that. So I hope that's coming through okay. So I have with me a Rubik's Cube, nice and standard. So the thing that I wanted to show off was, to start off, I wanted to show off some patterns which you may know, some people may know of how to do on Rubik's Cube. I think I'll start with a very nice, simple, straightforward one, which many people might know if they've had a chance to start with a Rubik's Cube, which is if you turn every side 180 degrees, you end up with the cube having this like checkerboard sort of design where every edge piece is the color from the opposite side. Nice and straightforward. Now, if you do that in that manner and you're showing your friends, they might realize that it is actually quite straightforward. What I learned quite early on was that there's a slightly snazzier way of doing that, which if you're going to show your friends that you know how to do this, can be quite impressive. So I'll see if I can explain how it's done, and then James, if you can be able to repeat this if you do have a cube available to hand, that way I'll know I've been clear with my instructions.
I'm here. Excellent. I just copied you then.
Just copied the whole. Yes.
I'll reset and then see if I can copy you with your new instructions.
New instructions. So what you want to do is hold the cube on two sides. So you're holding so with the thumbs, it's on the top two edges here, and on your fingers need to be holding the same. So you're basically holding one edge that you can turn freely, but you'll want to hold it in the center pieces, because what you want to be able to do is specifically turn 180 and still turn both sides. Okay, so hang on, let me do the start again a bit faster. So what you want to do is start with your solved cube, holding these edges. Now if you turn one side 180, then the other side 180, back, first one 180 again, and so on, just follow that pattern until you end up with two basically flip parts. It's less clear on the white side, but there you go, on the yellow side. Then what you can do is turn the whole cube 180 degrees around and do that again. Stop me if I'm going too fast, but it is nice and straightforward. Then if you do that on the remaining sides, that will checkerboard the whole cube without messing anything else up. Now, the reason this looks a bit more impressive is that you can do that quite fast, and it looks like you're doing way more complicated moves than just the standard turning everything 180 degrees. So have you been able to follow that? Has that been clear enough? See?
No, I can't do it, but
okay.
I'm sure loads of people can. It's just you're talking to me here. I'm not a massive Rubik's Cube person, so I'm trying to copy you, and I'm failing to copy you. But I'll pretend. Look, we'll do it again. Yeah.
Okay. So you
brilliant! Look at that.
Awesome.
Ta-da!
So yeah, so that's a nice checkerboard. I say the pattern is something that I say because it's quite straightforward. Like people who are playing with Rubik's Cube for the first time might accidentally find themselves doing that and going and being quite impressed that. Okay, so if you do like an asymmetrical set,
yes.
It's one of those early moments when you're learning to solve the Rubik's Cube. There you go. Oh, that was quite cool. But yeah, I was introduced to another way of doing it, as I say, which is if you do that, if you do it very fast, it appears a little bit more impressive. So if you're trying to show off to your friends who haven't had the chance to sit down with the Rubik's Cube yet, it's a bit more flashy.
I'm just impressed that I got the checkerboard and back again. That's my level.
No worries. So second pattern, this was actually came up. Someone requested it for Sydney Weaver to do, which is the super flip, which has its own mathematical interest. So I have the Wikipedia page up for the 20 moves to get there. The specific 20 move, or the specific thing with the super flip being that it's mathematically speaking the most complicated scramble, I guess, is a way of justifying it, because it's the furthest the cube can be from solved in terms of the number of required moves, I believe. So if what you want to do, so I'll do the slow way that Wikipedia describes, which is mathematically efficient, but pretty slow. So you'll hold the cube. So you want to sort of hold it so you're facing one side because you need to use the correct notation. So if we follow it around, so the first step is up, which is to mean you turn the top side up 90 degrees clockwise. Right, 180. The front side, 90 degrees clockwise. The back side, 90 degrees clockwise. Right, clockwise again, 90 degrees. Back, 180. Thankfully, when you're doing 180, you can go either way around. Right, 90. Up, 120. I do hope I get this right. One mistake and it won't work. Left, clockwise 90 degrees. Back, 180. Right, clockwise 90. Up, anti-clockwise 90. Down, anti-clockwise 90. Right, 180. Front, 90 degrees clockwise. Right, anti-clockwise 90 degrees. Left, 90 degrees clockwise. Back, 180. Up, 180. And front, 180. Now you get this sort of pattern, which might not be 100% clear to everyone at a glance, but the pattern you end up with is all the corners are solved. So you've got all 4 blues there, 4 reds there, greens, oranges, whites, and yellows. But every edge piece is in the correct position, but flipped over. So I'd say the mathematical relevance of this is that is the furthest the cube can be. I say that actually. I did recently learn watching someone else talk about this that it's not the only position, I believe, that is this many turns away. There's like hundreds of millions. But this is the nicest, I think, would probably end up being the case, given that you can see what's happened to it.
It's a pleasing pattern.
Yes, it's a recognizable and pleasing pattern.
We should mention a little bit more about this the sort of maths you were talking about, if you don't mind. So you were calling things up, down, left, right, front, and back.
Yes.
So we should show that off. So obviously, up and down makes sense.
Nice and straightforward.
Left and right should make sense. Left and right to me is like that. Obviously, opposite way.
Not sure if it's reflected or not, but yes. Front facing you, back away.
So when you say up, you're telling people to rotate a quarter turn
on the side that is facing up. Yes.
Yes. So the up side, the top side, a quarter turn.
Yes.
So if you say up twice, you'd be going a half turn. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, you did say up anti-clockwise, something like that.
Yes, there was
in the opposite direction.
3 moves, I think, in the order, which were anti-clockwise. They're denoted in the terminology, like, because when I say up, right, and stuff, these are usually just abbreviated. This is why we use like up and down, not like top and bottom, because that avoids bottom and back being the same.
Yeah.
So the notation can be, shortened. So anti-clockwise is denoted with a little apostrophe.
So people like yourself who know lots about this, they can describe moves to each other and how to solving algorithms to each other through this sort of up, down, left, right, front, back.
Yes, this came up in Sydney Moves segment. Noticed Sydney Moves in chat, so hello. So she showed a scramble in her timer app, which would give you a scramble using that notation, which you then solve from, and the idea is you time yourself solving that.
And then you said the super flip here is the hardest, or in terms of moves, it's the hardest.
Yes.
So we should talk a little bit more about that. So what do you mean by it is going to be the hardest or most difficult in terms of moves?
After Rubik's Cube was invented, I forget exactly what year. It was in the 80s, I believe.
Well, it went popular in 82.
Popular 82.
Yeah, I mean, it probably was invented a few years earlier.
Yes.
There was an evolution of it.
Yes, obviously, it became. I mean, the reason we're still talking about it today, it became a very popular toy, but very specifically with mathematicians, because look at the thing, and like the complexity of the puzzle is so intriguing, which gave mathematicians a good few questions. One being, how many different ways can it be scrambled? Like, what is that number? So we worked that out being 43 quintillion, I believe. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And but not 43 quintillion flat. A lot more digits there. Yes. So the other question was, so if you were some kind of omniscient like being, and you knew the most efficient way of solving the cube from any position, what would be the hardest that it could be? That like what is the what sort of scramble, like how, if so, yeah, you take a random scramble. If you knew what you were doing perfectly efficiently, how many turns would it take to solve? And then the extended question is, so what is the most number of turns required?
So this is solved at the moment, and if
So
I turned it one, that would be one step away.
One step
from
away,
being solved.
you could turn one.
If I did that, it'd be 2 steps away, probably.
Yes.
But how far away can you be from being solved?
So if you count 180 as one move, in this case, I don't know if that's strictly required for the total thing or not. If you count 90 degrees either way or 180 degrees on one side as one move, 20 moves is the required number, and that's the steps I took before were that there were 20 of those moves, I say, including 180 as a single step.
And it can't be done faster. So
and there is no way of solving this configuration and many others, but this one being everyone's favorite, in less than 20 moves. So I think I had it because I learned to solve a Rubik's Cube in early high school, and a friend of mine brought one in once, and so was like, "Oh, can you solve this for me?" Because I had it scrambled, it's been on my side for ages, and then you know how to solve these. Which then led to a few of my classmates being like, "Oh, well, I want to scramble it for you," and they would sit there for like 10 minutes scrambling it, and I'd be like, "Are you done?" They're like, "No, I want to make it as hard as possible." Now, if they'd known, they would have done this like that. They would have achieved their goal. But what they thought is that the more they scramble it, the further away it must be getting.
Yeah, which makes sense. And this is one that you know. This is one that you know how to solve in 20 moves.
Yes.
So if we gave you a random permutation, of course, you're not this all-knowing being.
Yes. Then suddenly I'm out. I'd be out of my comfort zone, and I'd have to come up with some other method. And that's where you end up using. That's what most people who solve Rubik's Cubes will be doing. They'll have a system of algorithms which they apply to the cube in some number of steps. Usually the better they are, the less steps those are. And then, they follow that through instead of looking for the efficient path. Though I do believe there are people who do look at a scrambled cube and then go for an efficient solve. That's another thing that people do enjoy doing.
And before, I've actually got something to show you if you're interested, but
Absolutely.
Did you have any other patterns that you wanted to show us?
Well, before we finish on the superflip, I guess what I should say is, so we have the 20 moves, which is all well and good if you can remember those 20 moves, which I should point out, I haven't got memorized. I've literally got them in front of me on Wikipedia, because as fun as it would be, and as much as one day I might remember those 20 moves as a party piece, it is kind of a dull thing to do. You're just doing 20 steps, there you go. And then you have to say, believe me, that is as fast as it can be done. In terms of number of steps. But there is another way of doing this pattern, which beyond just solving it using algorithms as well, which I quite like. So I can quickly show that here. So I've got it in the superflip. Other cool side note about the superflip is because it is basically the perfect opposite almost of being solved. The pattern to take a solved cube and put it into the superflip is the exact same steps to take the superflip cube and return it solved. There aren't many other cases that strictly do that, depending how you look at it. But anyway, so the way that I would prefer to do it, if I was just doing it without the list in front of me, is a list of steps similar to the checkerboard pattern. Those are to turn the middle part like that, so away from me. So hang on, I'm trying to see. I'll do it slower. I'll do it without using the sort of my finger manipulations to make it a bit clearer. So you turn the center away from you 90 degrees. You then turn the top side clockwise 90 degrees. This might be rotated on the camera. I'm not sure how Zoom handles reflection. Then you repeat that a few more times until you get the red center back on top, and it will have solved these two edges away from you. So what you then want to do is turn the whole cube 90 degrees away from you and rotate it anti-clockwise, so that the two pieces that were solved by the last two steps are now two pieces that need solving again. And if we repeat that step, those steps again. We end up with those solved again. So we're gradually getting back to a solved cube. Do the same set of rotations again to bring the last two misaligned edges. There will be two underneath as well. And repeat that step one more time. And that'll bring you back to a solved cube. Now, the sort of the showy off bit with this is that if you have a cube that does turn quite nicely like this one, and you're good with using finger manipulations, is you can do this quite fast as well, much like the checkerboard pattern system scramble. So that can look a bit more impressive if you're showing your friends. Have you managed to follow that enough?
Oh yeah, I've got it, done it. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, excellent.
And did you have any other patterns that you wanted to show off before we?
I don't have any other sort of like party piece patterns. There's a few patterns I know, but the way I get to them is just to use my algorithms to solve it into that position. And I'm familiar enough with the cube to know what's possible.
And I'm not much of a Rubik's Cube person, so I kind of know, people say, okay, Rubik's Cube is an application of group theory. So the idea is group theory is like when you make rotations and then, for the Rubik's Cube, if you rotate the top 4 times, you get back to where you started, this kind of idea. And that's what group theory is. But the Rubik's Cube is quite a hard application of group theory. It's quite tricky maths when you get into it.
It's very much the go-to example of group theory, despite the fact that it is far from simple or easy to understand compared to other examples, mainly because I think the Rubik's Cube being the popular thing and recognizable cultural icon that it is. But the trick with group theory is that you end up with this. You could imagine a theoretical map of all the possible scrambles of the Rubik's Cube, in which every scramble that is one move away from whatever position it's in is interconnected in some way, like on a massive web. It's like, I'd say you'd have 43 quintillion parts of this web, so it would be massive, so you couldn't physically make it happen or whatever, but you can sort of imagine it conceptually existing. The thing with that being a map of the group that is the permutations of a Rubik's Cube is that means some quirks of group theory sort of come up to play with the Rubik's Cube. And one of the most obvious ones is if you start with a solved cube and then perform any scramble, any mix of actions, and then keep repeating those actions again and again, eventually you will cycle back round to the solved cube. In some cases, this can take hundreds, won't be surprised if thousands of repetitions, but some simple examples do come back quite quickly. In fact, all the patterns I just showed you, the 2 patterns I just showed you, do have that quality. In fact, so if you do the one that gets you the checkerboard, if you then just repeat that a second time, it takes you back to solved. But let's assume that was a bit obvious. I don't want to do a random one because, as I say, I could be here for some time if I do, and we're sort of running a little short on time. But one I thought, which takes a few steps to come back to normal, but not too long, is to simply just take 2 corner edges like that you're looking here, rotate them one at a time, backwards and forwards. Eventually, this will come back to solve. You can sort of see that if I slow down a little bit, that it is working by the fact that the edge pieces come back into position multiple times throughout the cycle. So if you look at the blue cross sort of disappears. Let's get the lighting right. So the blue cross will keep appearing and disappearing. And eventually, there we go, it will come back to solved. Now, the cool thing is, that's an example I showed you, and you can trust me that I've shown you that works. But that will work for any combination of moves. If you come up with a random set of, it's probably best to leave it to a small number of moves so you don't forget what you're doing, and then repeatedly keep doing them on the cube, you'll always get back to solve. That's how groups sort of form. Every single action within a group forms a cycle within that group, and that is a cool little fact.
It is. And just before, I wanted to show you that thing that I did. I mean, I don't know if you have any interest in this. I don't know if anyone else has an interest in this. They shouldn't. But I'm not a big Rubik's Cube person, but I did do a thing with Rubik's Cubes. I don't know if you've seen a thing. I want to show you. I just want to show you.
Okay, yep.
So this is a Rubik's Cube that I did. Can you see this?
I do believe, because is this something you sell on Maths Gear?
It is, yeah. And this isn't an advert. I just wanted to talk about it.
I was helped Katie brainstorming, because didn't you want to find a situation where all the opposite edges? I eventually cracked down on a way of doing that, which I told Katie, which is to use the super flip, because that gives you the edges. And then there was a way of applying then a pattern to the corners. I was that person. I believe there's a second person. There was two people, and I was one.
I had a couple of people help, so that might have been you.
It might have been.
So this, just to explain what it was. What I wanted was to do magic squares on a Rubik's Cube, which is not the greatest idea in the world, but magic squares. So, but this is because the centers don't move. We're going to do a perimeter magic square, which means adding up along this line, or adding up along this line, or along this line, or along this line, adds up to a magic number, which I can put in the center. Right? And that's 12 there. Now this won't work because this is in the solved state for color. So it has two solved states. You can solve it for color, and that's what we've got. I should have solved it. I should have had it ready to be solved in the other way. So that's solved for color. The other solved position is solving it as a magic square.
Yes.
So every face has a magic square. So these numbers add up to the magic total in the middle. And this is what I asked for help for. I made it in a way so that, opposite numbers were the same color. So there's a little clue to help people along. Opposite numbers add up to 9 when it's solved, which I would like to show you, but it's in the wrong state.
Yeah.
So these couple of clues to help people find the magic. I mean, this is very low tech. I was trying to do this in a more high tech way, but that's a picture of me holding a solved version, not focused, but there you get the idea.
Non-colored solved version, yes.
So it has these two solved states, and it's kind of fun that it does. But what's really nice about it is when it's solved as a magic square, every face uses the numbers 1 to 8, because that's what a magic square is. It uses the numbers 1 to 8, at least for this example. So you'd have 1 to 8 and 1 to 8, and different colors. If it's solved by color, the other solved position, it uses the numbers 1 to 8 on each face. So either way, I know, that's good, isn't it? Yes. Either way it's solved, it uses the numbers 1 to 8. So there you go. That wasn't meant to be a plug, but I could just, I did a thing once.
Really yes.
I did a thing once.
It's very good.
So before we go, do you have anything to promote? In fact, you do. I nearly forgot, but of course you do.
While I'm here, I may as well plug the thing that I've been doing online for the entirety of lockdown. I was doing it before lockdown, but I've sort of been able to sort of double down a bit on it since lockdown. I've been Twitch streaming on a Twitch channel, which Tony Mann has kindly put in chat, twitch.tv /catastrophe. A little pun that I came up with because me and my partner run it, and her name is Katie, but she goes by the nickname Kit, so it's Kit Ash Trophy. Thought that was brilliant. Now, admittedly, the stuff we do on there is largely just sort of playing video games to a live stream audience, but as someone who is very interested in maths, whenever an opportunity comes up to either talk about it or whatever, it's more than welcome. So if anyone who's watching would be interested, feel free to come by and follow. And if you ever pop up into one of our streams and want to discuss maths, or if anyone would be interested, I'd happily do like some live streams with a video setup like this and explain some stuff about the Rubik's Cube. I would love doing that too. But yes, that is my plug for this section.
I think that's excellent. Again, we're a couple of minutes before we finish, but again, I did this before, but I'm going to ask Ash to help me along here. So remember, this is for charity.
Absolutely.
So this is associated with or inspired by Mark Watson's comedy marathon, 24-hour marathon.
Yes.
And it was Katie Steckel's idea, I think, who said, well, we could do some maths for you.
A maths version,
that expanded into 24 hours of maths.
Yes.
And this is for charity. So we are raising money for charity. So donation link will be in the chat. It is
Mark. I'm looking at it now.
Watsonathon.com. I'm sure people can find the correct links. And it is 2 charities that we're raising money for. One is Turn to Us, which is an organization helping people on low incomes who are struggling during lockdown, and Comedy Support. Comedy Support Act, I state right, which is supporting comedians who, of course, can't work during the lockdown as well.
Yes.
So two worthwhile charities that people should be donating towards. So
yes,
I'm sure I can vouch for that, and I'm sure Ash will as well.
absolutely.
So
everyone donate, go now.
yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Ash, for coming in and showing us things to impress your friends with your Rubik's Cube.
Yes, all of which, as long as you have solved Rubik's Cube, you don't even need to know how to solve it to do the things I showed you. So
this is a person who knows our audience.
Yes.
So thank you, Ash, for coming in. I'll ask you to turn off your two cameras.
Will do.
And then we'll
yes,
say goodbye.
Stop video. Goodbye.
Bye.